Get all this right, so I'm sure you'll give your intro. But his father was one of the founding guys that did bonsai in the States. Vin has taken up the reins afterwards. He also has other pretty interesting hobbies or does for a living. So you should talk to him. He's very interesting, but he's a very accomplished bonsai artist, and he's going to give us a demo on forest planting today. So I hope everyone enjoys it, learns a little. Please ask questions. He's only here for the night, so you got to get your answers while you're here, and he's here. So yeah, without further ado, Vin.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it because it's been. When was the last time I was here?
2 years ago. Yeah,
2 years
2 years
ago,
now.
January?
So
Yeah, I haven't.
I'm back.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, as Chris said, I'm a second-generation bonsai artist. My father learned from a few bonsai masters. One was I'm drawing a blank on his name. Anyway, he came back from Korea in 1952 and saw some bonsai in Japan and had to get into it. So he learned from a few people here, and I learned from my father. So it's fortunate enough for my father to be here to see me do this once or twice. So my father is no longer with us. He was 90 when he passed, but his spirit lives on in his trees. But anyway, today what we're going to do is a forest. Now this is going to be a two-stage presentation. And what I mean by that is I'm going to explain the forest plantings and what they're about, but I'm also going to explain the culture on what I'm going to do to these trees to get them into this pot. Now everybody's looking at us like, oh, this guy's nuts, he's going to transplant these trees while they're in full leaf. Now, there's one technique that I learned from my father and a few other Japanese trained bonsai artists, and there's something called defoliation. Okay, so in Japan they learned many years ago that you can defoliate these trees for two reasons. One, you can defoliate a tree that's a finished bonsai so that you get more light to the inside of the tree so that it looks more compact. And the second flush of leaves are a little smaller. It also gives you that fresh spring growth flush again. So the Japanese love to see that fresh green little pinkish, reddish pinkish flush in Japanese maples and Trident maples. Now Trident maples are very resilient and they can handle defoliation very well. One of my masters used to defoliate these 3 times in one summer. I usually do it once, maybe twice. The first time is always after Memorial Day, so I usually do it in the very beginning of June. Usually the first week of 2 weeks in June, I'll do the first defoliation. On a Japanese maple, not a Trident maple, I only do it once. That's all they can handle. So I'll do those now. The Trident maples I'll do now, and I'll do again in the end of July. And that's about it for me. Like I said, I knew a guy that did them in August also. So that's if you want to really ramify. You've seen these ramified trees where you're like, how did they get it to this point? Well, they defoliated them. Now, it's not something that beginners should do. It's something you should learn on a tree that you really don't care about, because you could kill it. Now, I know what I'm doing, so this is the perfect time. These trees now, with defoliating them, we can cut the roots on these trees because they're not drawing energy to feed these leaves.
How do you feel about the partial defoliation for those who are not as comfortable taking all the leaves off? That might be an option for them.
The partial defoliation I learned from my father and a couple other masters is for a finished tree, not for anything in training. Because if you just partially defoliate some of these younger trees, you're kind of tricking them into thinking, oh, I've got to send more energy into another direction, and it makes the tree out of balance. So I do a full, complete defoliation. I don't just do partial. So the partial for me, and there's a lot of controversy about that. A lot of the guys that I know that are more advanced hobbyists and bonsai artists today like to debate about that, whether or not it's a good practice. I personally don't do partial defoliation. what I've done in the past is maybe I'll take some of the outer leaves out, you know, like on a finished bonsai, you know, something like this. I mean, other than that, I take them all off or nothing. So I want to start defoliating these, but it's going to take a while. So what I'm going to do is have some volunteers. You want to be a volunteer? I'll give you some scissors.
Don't do it.
You know, you're gonna select trees you want to
I
use.
think I'm going to use these guys. Yeah.
Thank God Seal's not here.
She would have a heart attack. Anybody else want to defoliate a tree? You want to do one? No?
Mary, you want to do a
Joe
tree?
is filming. I have to get my glasses if I could do that, or it could be a disaster.
Grab a tree.
Show
Now,
me exactly what you want me to do.
Cut the leaves off the tree.
you see the leaves right here? Just cut them.
Okay, leave the bottom of the stem.
Leave the stems, all right?
Yeah, you can leave the red stem. It'll
About half the stem or all the stem?
Half the stem.
Which one should I do? This one?
Yeah, any one you want. Now you can also just do this, all right?
pull up like that.
Yeah, I'll make it.
I was hoping you would say that because that's my.
Yeah, you can do that
I
too.
never thought you could do that. Okay.
Take a tree. Defoliate. This is like.
Yeah. All right, I could do that without.
He's enjoying himself. You gotta like.
Just make sure you leave the little petioles, all right?
Let me.
I saw him defoliate before. You have more scissors?
Yeah, I got plenty of scissors. Yeah, these little sharp ones are perfect. So now, why do we defoliate again? The second flush will be smaller. The leaves will be slightly smaller. Also, wherever you pulled one leaf off, another leaf or two is going to come back. So again, we're increasing the ramification. We're increasing the ramification on these trees. Now, I'm doing this specifically so that we can transplant them, not so that we can ramify them, because they have some good ramification. They're not bad.
Compliments of Joe Lesnick. All the trees were donated by our member Joe.
What's the difference between your cutting the leaves and
Now, he's cutting them with the scissor. Ideally, shouldn't you just pull them? Is that not an easier method? Is it worse for the tree? Is it better for the tree? And when you're pulling them, you're pulling the whole.
I'm leaving the leaf, so I'm leaving the stem, so I'm just pulling the leaf.
Okay.
Okay. Now you can do both. I prefer the scissor, but I don't have time. We all don't have time.
Yeah. So ideally, you would use a scissor.
Yeah,
And then
scissor
when you're
works.
cutting off, you would leave essentially that little
The little
growth
the
that
little
comes off
stems.
of the
See,
leaf. Yeah,
see the little
yeah.
the leaf stems. Leave those.
You kill the growth node if you pull the whole.
Yeah, because what will happen is that little leaf stem it's still drawing a little bit of energy.
Yeah.
But what it's going to tell the tree is
I need to.
there's a dead end. We have to start a new bud inside that
Yeah.
that petiole. So it'll do it again. It'll send out another one. So
I have like trees in training pots.
yeah.
Should I just leave them alone? There's no reason to defoliate them.
No, unless you're going to transplant them or, you know, if it's something in training, don't bother. But if it's something that you want to ramify that has a lot of crazy growth,
It has a lot of crazy growth.
you can just cut it all back. And if you want to get more growth on the inside of it,
And
again,
that's okay to do this time of year?
this is the time to do it. Yeah.
You're not talking about that forest, are you?
No,
Yeah, don't.
I'm not even.
That's a whole different animal.
The
That
only thing I
thing.
do with that is look at it.
Now, certain Japanese maples don't like being defoliated. Now there's, what, almost a few thousand varieties of Acer palmatum now. When I first got into this 25 years ago, 30 years ago, it was like 200. When that book, Vertree's book, came out, there was 250 varieties. Now there's like a few thousand. But anyway, all of those variegated varieties like butterfly and Rosio marginata and you know which ones I'm talking about, the ones that are variegated. If you defoliate those, the leaves that grow back will be green. They're not going to be defoliated. They're not going to be variegated. So you kind of losing the variegation.
Or what about the following season? They go back
Following season, they'll come back, yeah, but you kind of, and I learned that the hard way, yeah, doing it.
So
Yeah.
can you defoliate when it's wired?
Yes, you can.
So that doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. You can defoliate a wired tree.
So we'll come back variegated the next season then?
Yeah, the next season.
Are those
Is there
two
really a
little
reason
ones
not
gonna
to
be
Unless it's a
defoliated?
carnival. And
If
you
it's
get
going
screwed.
to recover, it just doesn't?
Well, you could, like I said, you could do it if you need ramification and you want to, you know, get the tree more ramified to look more like a bonsai.
What is ramification?
You know, fullness where it looks like a real little tree. It's not all the branches are out.
Two to two to two, so two.
Yeah,
two,
ramified.
two,
Like a fan. It becomes
you
a
know.
fan.
So you have one branch, then
Now,
two come off
after
of
you
it, then
defoliate,
4,
you
then 8, or
take it out of
12,
sun?
or 8,
We'll
sorry,
get to that point.
and then 16. So it just keeps getting thinner and thinner.
So another Japanese maple that can't be defoliated is the dissectum, the what do they call them? Thread leaf.
Yeah.
Dissectum.
Lace
Lace
leaf?
leaves.
Lace leaves.
You cannot defoliate those. You'll kill it. It won't send out a second flush. It'll just die. So don't do it to them. I learned that the hard way.
A lot of hard lessons here.
You know what? I tell a lot of people, when I first started doing this, there weren't a lot of books on bonsai. There was some, but they were all like picture books. You know, they weren't, and the Japanese weren't divulging any secrets. They like keeping things to themselves. In Japan, if a tree wins an award in a show like the Kokufu 10 or the big shows they have, if a tree wins an award there, it's never to leave Japan, ever. So you'll never get it. You can't go buy one. You can bring it here. It's not going to happen. So they're very secretive. They keep everything to themselves. So it was kind of like, you know, ancient Japanese secret. They weren't telling anybody. So the few people that went over there and learned were the ones that brought back the information. And they learned from doing this for hundreds of years.
Try to pick up the pace.
It's all right.
If you get bored, Tom, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it.
Now, again, I'm defoliating these because I'm going to transplant these too. So we're going to be cutting the roots.
Are those two little ones need to be defoliated?
Yes, you could do one. Nice. You want a scissor? All scissors are to come back to this table, please.
If not, I'm going to hear it. You're going to be in trouble.
Everybody stop. Sometimes it doesn't happen often.
Go to the main stem.
Just do half. Yep, right there. Right, yeah, right in the
You're not going to mess it up.
You won't, yeah, you won't. And again, these Trident maples, you can't mess up on a Trident maple. You could cut it right here, and it'll grow back. You can literally cut it right here, and it'll sprout back. What did you want to add?
Is there a specific point where you decide the tree is not in training anymore? Because I see the trunks on these, I have some maples that are the same or thicker than the trunks on these. I still consider them just, you know, I'm trying to get something out of them. I don't want to put them in both sides.
Perception is everything. So what looks like a finished bonsai to you looks like something that might need a lot of work to me, but you can't go by me. You know, bonsai is a discipline, and it's a lifestyle. It's something you're doing for enjoyment. So you can take as long as you want to get a tree to a certain point, or you could try and rush it. By defoliating it, you're kind of kicking it along an extra season. Think about it. By defoliating it, we're bringing it back to March, where it's got to start making leaves again. And you know, you've got all this long stuff, which we're going to trim back. But you can see where you got the curves and then the straight parts. We want to get rid of all the straight parts. We wanted to see all the curves and the ramification. So if you would have left these straight parts, they'll become as thick as this, and they'll be, you know, a big giant tree or a bush eventually. So we're trying to make it a more of a compact tree.
Now, does this actually slow trunk growth?
It
Or-
does.
It
It
does,
slows
right?
the trunk growth, but it
Because there's less
increases.
solar panels essentially for a period of time.
But it's increasing your amount of leaves.
Yeah. Okay. So in the end, it could potentially increase if you leave that because you have more leaves.
Well, again, we do this to something that we want to transplant now,
Yeah.
or a finished bonsai where you want to ramify it, and you want to get light on the inside. Because a tree with a really thick canopy, believe it or not, no light is getting on the inside, and eventually all the leaves are on the ends. Did you ever see trees like that?
No.
Where it's like all the leaves are on the end and you have nothing on the inside. So a tree like that needs to be defoliated to get buds to pop on the inside. Because that's what's going to happen too. Since we're doing this, we're going to get all the buds on the inside. All this long stuff we're going to try to cut, and all the buds will be closer in, and you'll have a more ramified tree.
Putting back on the growing part.
Yeah, I'll just cut it.
Look at my finger.
No way. I'm a semi-pro.
With the foliation, how do you work feeding the tree?
There's this stuff.
What I do is I try to feed it a couple weeks before I defoliate. Now with Trident, you don't have to worry about that because you don't have to feed it anything. You got to keep growing.
When you cut the tips,
They're literally like a weed. But if it was a mountain maple, like a Japanese maple, in any of the varieties of Ace and Palmetto, I would feed them 2 to 3 weeks before I did defoliation. Not a lot, but I would feed them like quarter strength of whatever you're using. I also like that Osmocote. You guys use Osmocote? Because you can leave, it's like little pebbles. You leave them on the surface and they soak into the soil slowly.
And when it
Wrecking
leaks
everything
out
in here.
again,
Good job, Mary.
you start feeding it again that season?
I know, and I was trying to be really neat,
What
and
I'll
I'm like,
do
what
is,
am I being neat for?
since we're transplanting this, we're not going to feed it right away. Because it's kind of going to be in shock for a bit. I would wait 3 or 4 weeks and then lightly feed this tree. Because what we're doing is we're kicking it into gear by cutting these leaves off. We're telling it, oh, start growing again. It's telling itself, let's start growing. So it's already given itself the message to grow. We don't want to give it 2 messages to grow. Just 1 message.
would you ever defoliate and still leave, if you're growing like a sacrifice branch, you know, at the top to thicken the trunk,
Yeah.
would you ever defoliate for the purpose of letting that sacrifice branch get stronger, also creating ramifications below?
You know, again, with the partial defoliation, I've seen it in Japan, well, they'll defoliate the tree and leave the sacrifice
Yeah,
to go.
and leave that.
Yeah,
And so they
to
do
really
that.
thicken it up.
Yeah.
I've seen that too. But, you know, that's more of an advanced technique, and it depends on what you're doing. I mean, you might have a tree that needs a thicker trunk or a thicker branch somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
I've seen it where this branch is left to grow.
Yeah,
'cause
like
it's
I
too
mean, where
thin
it's
on
like
the
literally
bottom.
like 4 feet.
Yeah, they'll
coming
just
off
let it
of
go just to get a thicker bottom branch. You know? Now, let's talk about forests. One of the things I learned about forests from 2 people, John Naka and my father, is all forests are odd numbers. Now, one bonsai master used to tell me anything after 10, it doesn't matter. But I've never counted a forest with an even number that had more than 10, especially from Japan. Because when I was younger, I'd literally count all the trunks, even in these pictures, and it always would be an odd number. The Japanese don't like even numbers. They don't like. You'll never see 4 trees in a bonsai pot ever. 4 is a square. That's bad. You'll never see 8 trees in a bonsai pot. You'll never see 6 trees. You'll always see an odd number, 5, 7. You'll never see 9 trees. 9, the number 9 in Japanese, I guess kanji, can be two meanings. It could be the number 9, and it could be pain and suffering. So they don't want pain and suffering. They want happy things. So you won't see 9 trees in a pot either. Now, don't email me and say, Vin, I found a picture of a tree with 9 in it. You might, but not in Japan.
How many is he doing tonight?
9. We're going to do 8, 8.5. What have we got in so far? I think we're going to do 7, 3. Maybe 7. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We have a lot more than you need, so it depends on whatever you
The forest to the Psyche.
Psyche is a tray landscape, and there's usually rocks in a tray landscape. There may be little tiny bushes and plants at the bottom. So Psyche means tray landscape. Even though this is a tray landscape in a way, this is a forest. Okay? So Psyche would be, again, it would have more of a landscape feel to it, like looking into a mountain with rocks upright and maybe a river running through it, something to that.
I think it was dead when I got it.
They don't kill them, they die.
It was dead. Get on it.
Good enough for this, my dad says. Good enough. Good enough for the government.
And I'll say to him, no, it's not.
Nice guy.
That's very nice. Yeah. A lot easier.
It's good. I got stuff. They gotta go to stuff like that.
It's insane the tiny ones these guys got.
Maybe just defoliated.
What, these are defoliated? Really?
These leaves, they're just so tiny, they gotta go.
They gotta go, yeah.
I know, I've never
It's a different variety.
It's got to be some kind of weird dwarf thing.
Well,
Someone have another tree? Oh yeah, they're doing one back there.
There's one
So
back
that's
there,
the
so that's 7.
All right, so these we won't.
Yeah, unless if we need them.
Yeah, if you need one, I'll cut them.
Oh, sorry. I'm taking abusing you tonight.
Do you want me to start pulling them out of the pots and putting them on the side?
Yeah, you have like a bucket to put over.
that's where I'm at now.
Chris, when you pull out those pots, you'll see screen on the bottom. You can
No, we found a piece.
find a piece. Okay.
Yeah, we got a piece.
That's why I love bonsai soil. Look at that.
Was that Akadama or was that the?
Akadama, that was the Akadama mix. Covered everything right out.
Yeah, that's what
These little tiny ones. So this is Pat Oliver from Genovese, and her uncle is Tom Marinez. Sorry if I repeat myself. Oh, that's gorgeous.
When I built this, I didn't expect to go further than.
Did you go with the whole family then?
It's further on both sides. Jealous. I got
This is the
some that I really
non-bonus. This is
have to have.
not as pretty as that, but good example of the difference. Yeah, like this, Joe, like because of it was, they all went to the bottom, the roots. Like that's full, the column. This one, because of the soil, all the roots hit on the bottom.
That's peat moss and sand. We're still really trying to get out of the pot. Akadama tends to be a good soil.
Exactly. It's more, exactly.
Here we go. One of my biggest traits.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Is your scissor back?
Excellent.
So now he's gonna cut the roots?
Yeah, when you look at that one, it's going to be circling around. It's going to circle around the grain. And the bottom is going to be a little bit now.
It's funny, this tree has the remnants of the last pot it was in, the screening up high.
You know, I bought a Chinese elm from a friend of mine with a big base on it, and when I transplanted it, there was a little tiny blue bonsai pot embedded in the tree. So it was in a little blue pot, and you put it on the ground and forgot about it, and it rooted over.
So when you dug it up,
I dug it up. It was like in the ground, and I dug it up.
That's this way.
I left it in there.
I got a nice spot.
Yeah, I left it in
see,
there.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You have pictures?
Yeah, I must.
If you have pictures, I'd like to show the club something like that.
That's pretty wild. These leaves are so small in some of these.
You can show them the difference if you want to take it around like that. You can see the original pot, it's still bound into it.
Is there a pot there?
No, but you could see the square pot. It was, and you could see that there's drainage mesh here, and then it was under. Chop it all out.
Bad roots. Good roots, bad roots.
I'm not.
Peat moss, sand, and turkish.
Yeah, again, look, 2 seconds, all the soil's right off the roots.
That's a nice one, man.
This is a nice shape, this tree, Joe.
Yeah, the one,
You gave the club to sold to Leslie for like these are 50 bucks.
Those would be 100.
yeah, I got some trees inside. You need
150.
Nobody wants your trees, buddy. Right now, because we're busy.
so like
Working.
a lot of weight.
You know, there might be a rock. You know what? You know what, Tom? You might be right. There might be some. Feel right here. There might be some. There might be a rock in there.
Could be. Could be one I forgot about.
That would explain the weight. Well, there's also one. There's an item, something. It's either the root is really. It's interesting.
These are all yours.
Things like these little guys are so cute. All of them, really? It's the best feeling.
They go nuts. They hate when you cut them. I remember the first time Bob Mailer came to my house and raped my trees. I was like, oh.
How little they are.
I was horrified. Now I'm like, cut more.
Yeah.
You learn, I guess.
Yeah, that's how you learn. You gotta cut them.
I used to let things grow too long and then they get lengthy and it was usually
I
garbage.
used to teach people and say, oh, I'll graft it back on.
How long can you leave those roots hanging out, you know, just with the air?
Well, we're not in the sun, so they'd be fine for days, believe it or not. As long as they're not in the sun, cooking, you know. If you kept them in the dark, they'd be fine.
Have you ever defoliated a ginkgo tree?
No, you can't defoliate a ginkgo because it's considered a conifer. So it'd be like taking needles off a pine. A pine wouldn't have the strength to make more candles. You know, maybe a pitch pine, but you can't do that. It's very, very bad.
Joe, do you want these back? No, this one I'll give you back.
No, you can throw that one away. Throw that one away.
Well, in the pines you can take off candles at a certain point, which is almost
Tom,
like the
Tom, if you want, you can raffle off that pot when you're done.
underneath that are drawing energy. So
It's up for you, sir.
this one we got a flash.
Enough government work. It might be a rocket. Or it's a tap that's still in there. Something's
Yeah, it's just roots.
here. Yeah, it must just be the.
They're, you know, we're lucky we did this because they're going in a circle.
Just that's the
Yeah,
chasing the bottom. Plus the drainage screen.
yeah. Saving. Look, you can see where it was in a small.
Put them in.
What's funny is every one of these is in a
I remember the first time I did that, my husband's like, what happened to your tree? I have to come over and get some lessons from you.
You should, anytime you want.
I'm starting to fertilize a little bit better with fish.
I've been using fish fertilizer. I got to stop using it.
I'm afraid to.
The animals are coming and flipping all my plants over.
Yeah.
I found a
husband will kill
possum.
me.
I found a possum in one of the
Mine are right
trees.
by the pool, so he'd kill me.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. I didn't tell my wife I found a possum.
You should have seen when we put that all that stuff we made at the other club. Oh my God, he was ready to kill me. I had to put it on the other end of it. There were flies buzzing around. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, this one, it's not trying.
When you're doing single bonsai planting, you figure where the front of the tree is. How does that work with forest?
Forest has a front too.
Same thing with each tree, or?
We didn't get there yet.
Okay.
Way to jump the gun, man. We're still doing basic cleanup here.
Vin, what's aftercare on a defoliated tree?
Well, I would keep it in the shade. So we'll talk about that when we get to that point. But yeah, we'll talk about aftercare.
Okay.
You definitely should be doing this in the shade. 'Cause you don't
Yeah,
want
that's why it's good that we're doing it in the dark too. You would never do this in the sun. All right.
So this was akadama, and then these were all pumped.
Now,
Unless you and Leslie.
Soil, wow.
You might do this.
What happens to
Yeah, I should take a picture of that.
Much nicer too.
The akadama really makes a difference.
I mean, you can
now
sit
also with forest, we're depicting sometimes a family. So for example, John Naka, did everybody know who John Naka is? You know? John Naka is one of the premier bonsai artists who was originally from Japan that taught in California. I saw him twice. He came to Phil's studio. But John Naka has a world famous forest called Goshin, and it's currently at the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C. And that particular forest is depicting his grandchildren. So it's 11 trees. He had 11 grandchildren.
Now, what if he had 9?
He would have to have one of his kids have one more kid. No, 2 more kids, so it would be 11.
He would have grandchildren, and then he would have
Right.
11 or 12.
So also, for example, a lot of times it'll be a family unit. It'll be the parents. So what I'm going to depict here are the parents and the children. All right. So there is a meaning behind a forest. It's not just let's throw a bunch of trees together and it looks good and that'll be great. You can't really do that. So what I do when I figure out who the parents are, that might be a good parent too.
Let me know. I'll clean it up.
I don't know. It's got this.
That's what I was just looking at.
That was from an air layering,
Yeah, I
I'm
can
looking
tell.
to see what.
but I never trimmed out the alternate branches.
I
So
won't use that one.
no, go ahead and take it.
No,
Just may need a little work.
It won't look right. Now what I do with the parents is I try to put the parents as close to each other as I can.
Then you don't know that.
And what I'll do is I'll look at them and I'll try and, what is that? Swallows?
Could be bats.
And I'll
Barking
see-
spiders.
Yeah, this works good. What I'll do is I'll eliminate the roots on this side. Not eliminate, but I'm going to try and get them as close to each other as I possibly can. Because when you see trees in a forest, they're not exactly spaced 3 feet apart.
Do you leave room for the birds to fly through, like Naka says?
Yeah, Naki used to say that, leave room for the birds.
I love that.
He used to say, but sometimes I want to see big birds flying through.
I know.
It's okay.
It won't.
You don't want to come around my house during repotting season.
It's Trident maple. It can handle it. You can eliminate a lot of roots on this side.
It's interesting. It's 2 different soils.
Joe, how long were you growing these trees out?
2 years.
A nice tree.
That's probably about 6 or 7 years right there. The big one. They're all cuttings.
What time do you do the cuttings? August? Somebody was telling me Trident maples, August is the time you do cuttings.
I do them from February on. I don't get much.
Oh, you do them in the greenhouse?
In my garage with fluorescent lights.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But I don't really have great success. I have better success this time of year.
Oh, yeah?
Anything I cut.
Start your air layer this time of year.
Rooting medium and like a
Soil?
peat moss mostly. Sometimes I use peat moss and sand.
So these are all
Yeah, none of these were purchased trees. They're all from. I bought three.
This is technically.
I bought 3 trees from. Who's the guy who sells trees here?
Dan.
Dan. I bought like the first year I was doing it. Everything is cut off of those.
Got a whole new respect for you, man.
He's unbelievable.
Some serious. That's nice.
I grew up on a dairy farm, and one of my chores was handling manure, so I was very good at shoveling.
You're totally full of poop.
I know my way around a good chicken coop and a cow barn.
Chicken poop, my favorite fertilizer.
My grandfather found out he could sell that stuff.
Rabbit poop's really good. Really?
We ate the rabbits. We didn't have any rabbits. We just ate them. Oh, there goes the whole demonstration.
It was perfectly adjusted.
Now, yeah, we're a little off balance.
You just gotta do it.
If this doesn't come out right now.
It's right on the trees.
Yes, I'm wiring the trees together so that they stay together. They're a married couple now. That's the ring.
They don't like even numbers.
That's true. Don't make fun of that.
Right. You gotta do it 3 ways.
This isn't a joke.
There goes the moral aspect.
Yeah, I'll figure that out.
Yeah, 3 ways.
Now, I've explained in the past too.
That's an old man's thing.
So, a bonsai always has a front and a back. And what I've learned in the past is you want the bonsai to be welcoming, like leaning forward towards you. See how he's leaning towards you? And I'm serious. This isn't like a joke.
It's like a bow almost.
Well, he's like saying, welcome,
Greeting you.
Come see me. Now, you don't want the bonsai to be with his arms folded and he's leaning back.
Pay attention, Leslie.
Okay? I'm serious. Why, does he have a tree that's leaning backwards?
Most of these trees.
They're leaning backwards?
Most of these trees are going like this.
Get me away from this guy! So, I want the tree leaning forward. So when we get to that point, I'm going to figure out which is the front on these, and I'm going to
He
have them
started
try
COVID
to
before it was
go
famous.
forward.
He knows I love him, so-
Would you do that in the way you plant it, by lifting it
Yeah,
up?
I'll position it. Yeah.
That's unique. I never thought of wiring them before getting them into
Wire them together, yes.
Normally they do a little grate at the bottom and do it. This is the first time I've seen it. Thank you. I learned something.
Do you wire your trees into the pot, Leslie?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Just
Well,
checking.
no, what I'm saying is,
Yeah, no, I understand what
I've
you're
seen the
saying.
flowers where
Wire them together.
they wire them in the pot.
Some people will use a mesh and wire the individual
Yes,
trees
that's
to the
what I'm
mesh.
talking
Yeah.
about. Yes, they make a mesh and then they wire it down.
Yeah, I like wiring them together, so I know what I got.
And then you wire them down in the pot.
Yeah, they're all going to get wired into the pot.
Bless you.
Bless you. Now I'm going to eliminate all these branches that are in between.
See, I didn't have to defoliate all of them.
But you didn't know which branch
I
you
know.
needed until the
If you would have
artist
cut all the branches on one side, we would have needed the other side.
Trimming them before I gave them back.
Give the guy a break. Hecklers. You got hecklers.
Tight group,
Well,
tight area.
when it comes time to raffle, I'll remember who's heckling.
I like the basin.
What's it?
If these were the ones you gave up, I'd like to see what the other ones are.
Which ones you kept? Yeah.
That one was in a forest of 7 trees. And
What happened to the other 6?
they were all the same size, so I took them apart, separated them. That was going to be the main tree, my next forest.
Might be.
It was going to be.
You know, if they were all the same size, could you just cut some of them?
Well, the thickness of the trunk.
This is the trunk, yeah, they don't look, the perspective is off.
You want,
They all
see
look-
how Vinny's got thin trunks and thick trunks?
These are all different ages.
Yeah, they are
The
different ages.
biggest one is about 7, right? You said?
6 or 7 years old, yeah.
I really like that tree.
All right, so what we're going to do is this.
When Bob Mailer came to the Bonsai Society of Greater New York the first time, the first exhibit, that tree was in the first maple forest that I had. He liked the red pot that I...
A ribbon for that? Didn't he give you like an hour?
No, that was the next year when John Capobianco... Oh, I shouldn't say that. Was a little...
Especially it's videotaped. Remember the escalator.
Now, obviously we've got these screens but we need to tie a lot of these trees in too. So
Actually, you can get the trees in there.
what I like to do is bring these. I'll put a lot of these in.
Is there any reason you're using copper wire instead of aluminum wire for that?
Because it's going to hold better.
Okay.
It's going to, I could tie them down better.
Use thinner wire.
Say again?
You can use a thinner wire.
Yeah, it's a
Locks down on them too.
It's going to lock them in. Yeah, I don't like to turn a wire and it snaps. So we're not messing around.
Good stuff.
The more the better.
Much rather have a piece of meat or something. It wasn't much of a dinner.
That's going to turn. That's going to be about half an hour. You're going to be
It's going
nothing.
to be sugar.
Anyway, okay.
I see that. And you tripped over that and held it together.
Well, I still can't lift. Every 2 weeks I gotta
Oh, yeah.
give myself a shot.
The big maple. Oh well.
Biological.
Yeah.
That's a nice old tree.
That's good. You might be able to get 9 trees in this container.
I gotta tell you, that's the first time I ever heard the 9 tree thing. I have a forest with 9 trees in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never heard that.
I
Now I'm
only
like,
heard
oh,
that
shit,
from
I
John
gotta either
Nasca.
add a tree or kill a tree.
And I thought he had that in his book. He didn't. He was just telling people.
Yeah, I read that's not in the book because I've read the book, but maybe it is. I never thought to ask.
It might be in his books. I don't know. But I didn't forget it.
Most of mine
Been
are
in my-
7 or 11.
It's been in my mind the whole time.
Peter Chan said, I forget what the number is. He says, once you get past that number, don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, Peter Chan. I like Peter Chan, but he's very what's the
He's
word
on
I'm
his
looking
own.
for?
Here's one where you use most of it.
He reminds me of Phil. Phil was the same way. Phil Tackley. It was just seat of your pants, do whatever you want, which is great.
Some piece of property there.
Where's the soil mix we got?
Which one do you want? That.
Organic? I think we're going to do a little bit of both. Yeah.
So when all the leaves come back in, is this?
Do like 2 to 1. Say again?
So after you're done and it's planted and this forest grows back all its leaves,
Yeah.
is it no longer viable? Or do you have to, pinch off all the leaves again? Because it's going to look totally different.
Well,
Or do you just let all the leaves?
you let it grow, but it's not going to send out that crazy growth. It's going to make clumps of leaves. Like there's going to be 2 leaves everywhere. You know, you're going to be a little more ramified. It's going to be lovely.
It's easy.
Do we have? We're doing a mix of organic and inorganic. So this is a standard deciduous mix in this bucket that I brought. And where is? I think it's looks like some turfus, sand,
and pine bark.
Yeah,
mulch?
pine bark, and some type of probably pro mix. Is my guess. We could ask him when he comes back from.
I thought the organic soils were a no-no.
Well, what we're doing here is, since it's a Trident maple and they're young trees, I want to put some organic material into this mix because I want it to retain some moisture. If we use just the coarse mix on this very shallow pot, this is going to dry out super fast. Okay? So I'm adding 1 part of organic mix to 2 parts of our coarse mix. Again, reason being because it will dry out too fast if we don't do that.
What's in the coarse mix?
It's a standard mix. It's akadama, pumice, lava.
It's a standard mix.
Equal parts?
No, that would be for pine. It's
Two on one?
Yeah, it's
Is it the
on your cheat sheet I gave you.
Bjorn Holmes mix?
Yeah. Happy for you to say it.
Bjorn Holmes?
What's the other guy's name that they use? Boone mix. I don't know. Except Boone has pine in it. I think it's pine bark.
Yeah, Boone Manic.
Yeah, Bjorn tells you to use 2-1-1, and then you see him in his demonstrations opening up a bag of Akoi mix and just pouring the whole thing in.
He's already done so. But this is 2 parts akadama, 1 part lava, 1 part pumice in this mix.
Now some of these smaller crooked ones, I'm going to put a wire on them.
You got a question down here?
Yeah.
Would you, are you still drawing from that? Yeah.
You're in the way.
No problem.
Chris is in the way again.
It happens. I get in the way.
Chris, you want me to go look for another pot?
No, when he's... I'll just mix up another. He's not going to...
Now this is something I learned from one of my masters. Put a wire on these trees and try to get the similar shapes to the parents. You know, when you see a forest, the trees are all growing in harmony with each other. Okay? They're not growing in all different directions. So that's one thing I learned really young about forests. Let's get them all to look like they all are a cohesive group.
I've seen a lot of forests where the outside trees are...
They're leaning out?
Yeah.
Yeah, well what's happening is, if you see a forest in nature, the larger trees in the center are taking up the light, so the trees around it are trying to get out. Yeah, searching for more light. So that you could depict too. I mean, you want it to look natural. Now you got to be careful with tridents. They snap like carrots. Anybody ever notice that?
Yeah.
Especially if
That
they
was
got
very disappointing. Yeah, like a
No, I just watched them wire. I go, I can't believe it didn't snap it.
It's okay. It's a trident. Just grow right back.
Yeah, they grow back. Like I said, you can cut them down to nothing and they grow back. Literally cut them to nothing. I had a big trident growing in my yard that I planted 15 years ago. And I looked at it this spring, and I'm like, what do we could do with this thing? We got a trunk like that. So I cut it to about six inches off the ground.
Oh, wow.
Just cut it down. Because it was starting to shade things and get in the way. And now it sprouts all over the thing. So I'm just gonna, that'll be a bonsai one day.
There you go. Yeah, but what about that root ball, too?
Hey, get rid of it. That's why it's sprouted so good. It's got a giant root ball.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. That's what I'm saying.
If you don't get rid of the whole root ball, can't even the roots sometimes put out new shoots?
Oh yeah,
Suckers? Yeah, you
yeah.
always got Trident to get suckers. There's one growing in this pot off the side here.
What are you calling a sucker? Sucker.
Leslie's trying to make up for Patrick.
It's not even, it's not
Trying is.
Trying. Yeah.
trying hard.
He's much prettier than I am.
So even though it's odd numbers, you're wiring them together in pairs then?
Well, this is gonna be a trio. I'm gonna put another one today.
Trios are good.
Got a thing with this trio thing.
Yeah, it's odd number. I thought 8 was a good luck or something.
Odd numbers in feng shui.
In Chinese it is.
This isn't Chinese, this is Japanese.
They don't like each other
I don't
anyway.
think so. Feng shui, 8 is a bad number, I think.
I
Is
thought
it?
8 was good.
Yeah, no, in Chinese, the number 8 is good.
Really?
Yes.
So where did your bonsai come from?
These are Japanese maples.
Do you have to
Trident's
spritz
a
those
Chinese maple.
roots? Do you have to spritz those
Well,
roots, or you think it's
eight
not
feng shui
enough?
was no.
They're still really wet.
Maybe
Again, we're
feng
doing
shui
this in
is
the dark.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
Not that I'm an expert.
You can't do this in the full sun. You'd be
I have forest.
stupid.
Yeah, it would be over.
Because in a half an hour, they'd be dried out.
Yeah.
This is the perfect way to do it.
It's nice, no wind.
And I've got birds chirping.
Just watch out for the
Singing.
We should start the new name for the club is Bonsai by Moonlight.
Catfish are jumping.
Moonlight Bonsai Club of Long Island.
Yeah, this is a good idea.
Koya jump.
Those got good taste.
Yeah, the cool.
It definitely need more. Putting them together.
More trees.
See it all come together. It's amazing.
Maybe we'll add more. We'll see.
Because look, there's 3. It's like they have.
Gotta leave room for the birds to fly through.
Oh, sorry. And the river.
And with growth and, you know.
Could you put that root ball in your left hand below it so to make that one taller than the other?
You could. You can do whatever you like. I know what you mean, though. You want to make it
Yeah.
to adjust the heights, but I would just rather cut the tops.
Okay.
But I like placing them together naturally. I don't like when it doesn't look natural.
So we do it right now. And look at that, because they're doing it. They love me.
You know, I've seen a lot of forests, and I've studied them. I've got 2 major forests. One was on display at the Valavanis convention. What is that?
National.
International. And that forest I've had for 25 years. I've studied them because I remember seeing forests when I was young that didn't look real, and I wanted a real looking forest. It's really easy to make a forest. Just stick a bunch of trees together. But it's not real easy to make it look real, like you're walking through the forest and seeing a real forest. And that's what we're trying to do here. Not trying, that's what we're doing.
What would you call that piece that, I think it was Kimura, that's famous for? It's trees planted in rocks.
but it's going like up a slope. It's huge.
Oh, on a like a slope
Yeah.
rock, like a man-made rock. They're spruces, and they're wedged together. That one, where they're coming up, they're stepping up
Yeah,
the
they're
hill.
going. Yeah. Well, the whole rock is like tilted.
Yeah, that might be more of like a psyche if you think about it.
Okay, but I thought psyches were always like small.
No. Psyches can be quite large.
No.
Now these wires we're putting on have to be taken off. What I would do is I would take them off in the fall, or if you see them digging in, take them off right away. Whoever gets this, you gonna raffle this off?
Yes.
If you don't behave yourself.
Here at the end, so everyone knows, there'll be raffles to win the arrangement.
So obviously it doesn't take too long for them to firm up into shape then.
Well, you might have to wire them again.
The trees aren't too close together. Like they look like, I know you're wiring them.
I'm purposely putting them close together. I want them close together. You mean in time will they have trouble? They'll be fine.
See it all the time in nature.
Yeah.
No problem. Just a thought.
I'd like to, but
Yeah.
Now, how long will you leave the wire on the roof?
I know, you just don't want to bring them home.
Those you can leave forever.
Because I keep losing the
They're just
screw.
going to grow.
You just don't want to bring them
It's
home.
going to grow around.
No, I'll bring them home.
Like 35 years or something, we talked the whole.
Well, what'll happen is the tree will become one tree. The root mass will be like transplanting one tree. In the forest that I have, that I've had for 25 years, eventually even the trunks meld together. So mine, all the trunks are one mass, and there's trunks coming out of the top of that one mass. So it'll become one large bonsai tree.
Almost like a raft.
Yeah.
Well, a raft, believe it or not, is probably a very old bonsai.
Is there anything against putting different kinds of trees into a forest?
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
good.
it sucks.
You know, it's funny you ask that, because one of the classes I was in as a young man, a kid asked exactly that. He's like, I want to put a spruce in there, I want to put an azalea, I want to put a maple, and one of my teachers was like, no.
Did they show up in nature
It's
that
either,
way?
it does, but...
Yeah. Well,
but-
I mean that kind of variety. Sure, you'll see.
The problem is the scale is.
Yeah.
No, I
Azalea
understand.
next to it just
But
looks-
like I said, we're
get that.
depicting a family unit, we're depicting somebody's grandchildren, we're depicting life. We're depicting a species of tree that grows together in a forest.
And drop seeds and. continue.
Now, in Psyche, somebody mentioned before, was it you? Somebody, Psyche. Psyche have multiple species in them. But Psyche is tree landscape where there's rocks. So you're depicting like a mountainside where you might have spruce on the top and azaleas on the bottom. Okay, so that you'll see mixed species in. But what we're doing here is a forest, so no. Don't ask again.
Out.
I'm only kidding, not really. Leave that there. See if I have to wire this or not. This one's too straight, we're gonna wire this.
So you're doing 2 parents and 5 kids or 3 kids?
Well, we're doing
Two
7
kids,
trees.
a cousin, and an uncle.
So, 2 parents and 5 kids.
And a girlfriend.
Battery.
Oh, yeah.
It was like that.
Yeah.
Before I had a battery in. And I knew I could charge in the camera. I even happened to have a battery back there. And I plugged it into the camera and it actually charged the battery enough to make it through the photo. Yeah. And it was, dumb luck.
I have 5 batteries and I just keep
You
rotating.
added any new trees?
1 in each camera and 3 spares. So I know which ones are exhausted, which ones are still good. So.
The only trees I've added to my collection is stuff like this.
What kind of batteries is
I
that?
haven't bought the trees probably 10 years.
Oh, those double A?
No.
Oh, those are the same thing that I've been using. Oh, they're a bigger battery than what I'm using. Yeah, it's a much bigger battery. It's a Sony proprietary battery. I didn't know if it was like double A's or. I use Nikon, and Nikons take like a double A for that part,
And
for the motor drive.
done like that, but I've just gotten into the Sony so much. At this point, I'm like, yeah, I'm stuck with this. I love it.
I use these cameras more for than I do in my Nikon. They're smaller, they're handier, they're higher resolution than my Nikon.
Well, it's funny because originally one of the reasons I went with mirrorless was the compact size. And then, like I said, particularly with my first camera, it went like that. Then I added the stupid battery handle. And
same size.
Now I'm away from it. All right, so I'm going to build this with the front towards me, and then I'm going to turn it around. Maybe we should put this on the turntable.
600 lens.
Chris, you have the
Wow.
turntable?
Is it 1.5 of a 35 millimeter? Is that a full frame mirrorless? So it's 24 by 36 centimeters or millimeters size frame. It's like an inch by inch and a half. Okay. Because this is a C-size sensor, 3/4. Yeah. So if you had 100 millimeter on a 35 millimeter, with this it would be 150.
Because of the nice green leaves.
I'm still learning.
We all are, with everything.
Well, it's funny, I got interested in bonsai almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
Now, what I usually do with the parents is you never put the parents in the middle. It's just like a bonsai itself is never going to be in smack dab in the middle.
What part of Maine did you grow up in?
North Falmouth.
Yeah, sure. I used to live in Auburn.
Okay.
Auburn, Lewiston area.
Put the favorite close to the dead.
When I was a little kid, I lived in Lisbon.
Okay. I spent all my free time backpacking when I was there. Great.
It's great for riding. And now my folks are retired at the Tibet.
Okay.
I was actually up there early in the spring,
Oh, yeah?
and just walking through the woods and just cutting stuff. Yeah, you're gonna.
Now, all these wires I put in here, I'm using to tie this thing down, because you don't want the wind to take this thing out.
Oh yeah, I won last week. Tom, the first time ever. Yeah.
I can't.
You just started something.
Why do you have so many hose attachments? Hose attachments? Did you bring all the wands?
Yeah.
Why do you have so many wands?
Can never have enough.
Yeah, no, it's good, but I was like, why does he have, I have one. I'm like, I'm good.
I have one now, so. I figured everybody else can use them.
I was like, wait, he brought all these? These are like
I go through one a year, so.
I do break it, but I just,
Yeah.
That's funny. You like me? I'm like, let me get double.
I think I'll share my,
That's cool. That's good. I'm trying to come up with stuff to raffle off.
save them for the raffle.
That's what we will.
Yeah.
I told them to we'll put them in the shed. I gotta go through that shed and see what's in there.
Give me the tail.
You're being hollered at.
I'm gonna get a little bit of.
Thank you. Ooh, that's some tail.
They're too busy with his.
Oh! Wow. That was a good one. That was a good one. I give you that one. That was sharp, man. You dinged me on that one. That's a good one, man. Just gotta get up early to get one on me.
I love it.
Hey,
He's gonna call me later. You know, that shit was too funny in front of everybody.
My buddy's kid's gonna get to use your kayak before my kid. He's going to camping trip this week, so I'm like, you wanna borrow it?
Give him the light jacket. Good. I might have some more stuff too.
Yeah.
Roger's
Yeah, he's like,
cleaned up.
because he was doing it.
Right.
So I don't gotta. You wanna borrow my friend just gave me a kayak.
How old's the kid?
He's 9. Yep, go for it. He's not a big kid.
Okay.
So he's like Are you Captain Chad? Oh, great. Nice to meet you, man. That's the only. Okay, now, are you? I have nowhere to keep it.
So those three that
You
you're
are full
putting in are
captain,
going
licensed
in a
captain.
different direction as the others, is that?
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
No, I gotta tie them down. Yeah, once I get another wire on them.
I love my boots.
Told me all about it. You know, you would think by now I'd be on it. You gotta do the Black Lives Matter sign.
Now, would you ever put this on the slab?
Both lives matter.
You know, I had one of my cars on the slab for many years, and the problem I had with it on the slab
You got some more
is
tickets?
eventually when the
more
root
tickets?
system got very big and compact.
What do you got here?
Is everybody talking?
Yes, they are.
Give me some listen. Thank you. One of the questions was, should we put this on a slab? And
What
I
does
was,
that even mean? What is
a slab is a rock, a flat rock. I had a forest on a slab for many years. And after being on that slab for about 5 years, I'd say, it started declining. And I didn't know why, because I would water it, I could get water to it, you know, no problem. But what was happening is the root system was so thick and compact that no moisture was getting to the underneath the direct center of the plant. Not a drop. I mean, when I finally transplanted it and took it apart, I saw that it was bone dry in the center there. So I decided to put it back in a pot, which is what I did, which was smart because then it did really well after that. But I don't recommend putting forests on a slab unless you can maybe drill holes with a paddle bit in the middle. You know what a paddle bit is on a drill? It's drill holes down the middle and see if you can do that. Yeah, of the whole forest. Yeah.
But like you're wiring it now, how would you keep it, contain it on a slab? How would you keep it secure?
Well, what I did was I drilled holes, little tiny holes in the slab, and I used a hammer and I put lead shot in the holes with wires to hold the lead held the wires in the holes. So. And I also tried glue, like epoxy, that worked too, but in time that'll fall off.
Did you keep the other part?
Again, I don't want to walk in front of the camera.
No problem.
Doug got rocked.
Yeah, I got a rock up in the Delaware River in front of the bar. Yeah. Yeah.
All the way from upstate.
There's a fort. Yes, green. And it's Bonsai. Yeah,
Bonsai demonstration.
okay.
I like this side best.
Your side has the front?
Yeah. Feels better.
That's the
Which
back side,
ideally,
right?
though, you would put normally the bigger tree.
Oh, you changed it. You're changing
I
it.
decided to change it. Nobody hold it against me. I can do whatever I want. Do we have a chopstick anywhere?
Yeah, in the cabinet.
You need more.
Very good, thanks.
Vin, you need more soil?
No, I got it.
I'm hitting you, man.
Somebody fell asleep at the wheel.
Somebody fell asleep. Somebody
More fun
forgot.
for a second.
More important.
Which one, Leslie?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta come check. Do we have any moss? Go collect some from under that tree. No, I'm only kidding. You know. He's going.
So I've seen when people put moss, especially on new plants.
What?
When the roots like are outside.
Hey Ben, root over rock. What?
Like the roots on the middle, on the big one. That one, what's is there a name for that?
Oh, the Nabari.
Nabari.
So, is it too late to buy more tickets?
When they're putting moss on a new planting, especially if you're going to leave
Leslie.
it for a couple of years.
Leslie did.
See Tom.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
ideally, you take the moss and
Such a deal I have.
grind it up, and then
What do you need?
like separate it, right? And then sprinkle that on top of it so that the moss kind of grows with the roots. I've heard it as like an ideal.
Well, what they do is they take moss and they sift it through a screen,
Yeah.
and all those little moss
Okay,
spores all that grinded down moss will grow into moss again. So what you're doing is you're creating like moss dust.
Seedlings.
Yeah, and you sprinkle it where you want it.
Yeah.
And you water it, and it'll eventually become moss in those spots.
Growing more comfortably.
It looks more
and-
natural
Yeah.
because it's like planting seeds,
Yeah.
like grass seeds. They grow more natural than laying sod down.
Yeah.
You know.
Would you recommend though, like in the meantime, putting like a layer of sphagnum on top of that to protect it?
Well, that's why I put some organic matter in this soil.
In order to prevent.
To keep it from drying out, yeah. Because if it was just the coarse mix, it would probably dry out.
And in that case, then you would put a layer of something on top.
Well, I like to decorate it because it looks nice. I like to use sand. Like I should have brought some. I didn't. And you could, you know, when you go collect moss, you can collect it in little sheets, and then you can cut those sheets into little circles, and you can place them like in clumps, you know.
Oh, we have some black lava.
Black lava? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's very fine.
Shake it up, Mary.
Not done yet. Doing the final touch.
She's not shaking anything up. She's busy talking.
Do we have like a listing bottle or something?
There is one. That was thrown in the pot.
Now, whoever gets this, you cannot dump this in your car because all this soil will fall out.
Well, you gotta keep it on your lap.
You got to hold it on your lap and hold it right home.
Get an Uber for the tree.
Very precious.
Tree bus. Yeah, now I'm addicted. You got a gambling problem.
Can you put a stocking on
I'm not going to buy tickets. I'm not going to buy tickets.
Spending my kids' money.
I think he got the last three. You got the last three raffles, I think.
No, just the last one. That was my first.
Your first?
This is my second. I'm just letting you know. I had to do it again.
I remember you going up there a few times.
Got a new method now. Yeah. Bring one home, you got to bring one in.
How often do you have to transplant, repot this?
Well, like I was saying earlier, this eventually will become one with the other trees in it. So Tridents grow really, set out a lot of roots really quick. So I would say leave it in here for 2 years. Now, whoever gets this, do not put it in full sun right now. Put it in shade for at least, I'm going to say 2
Hear that,
weeks.
Leslie?
About 2 weeks. Yeah, you don't want to cook this thing. And then once it starts leafing out, move it into partial sun. You don't want full sun on this thing baking it. You will bake it and kill it. So, and now it needs to rejuvenate and grow back. No, again, don't fertilize it right now because we just transplanted it and we just told it to start growing by removing the leaves.
Isn't it
No, this is probably
stressful though to wire it at the same time?
Not on a Trident maple, no. You'll be good.
Now, this is
You'll
probably
be
a
ready to go.
rookie question, but
Yeah.
is there a difference between feeding and fertilizing?
Where I was.
Not really.
I'm like, how do you do that? It's a whole, it's a thing.
Like I water with a very diluted Super Thrive mix,
Right.
but I also have slow release fertilizer pellets in my tree.
Well, Super Thrive is just vitamin B12, is what it really is. So
Yeah.
Is it fertilizer? It kind of is. It's giving nutrients to the plant. I've spoken about this before too. Anyway, this is going to be the front. When you fertilize your bonsai, you don't want to make it look like they're super lush and flush and like a bush.
You want it to look natural, struggle.
Yeah. So, I think Joe was talking about how, somebody got reprimanded for their trees being all the same size. I've also gotten reprimanded at a bonsai show for the trees being
too healthy,
too full. Right.
Reprimanded or criticized?
Both. Both. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Like you should have known better?
Exactly.
Iris, you should have known better.
But again, whoever wins this, don't put it in the full sun. Don't kill it, because I spent a lot of time on it.
Did a great job with it, Vin.
Thanks. And
should it be watered immediately?
well, whoever gets it, take it home and water it. Those roots had a lot of moisture in them. Bring it home and water it, because if you water it now, it's going to just
get all over your car.
Could you just turn it around once? Give me a look at it.
Oh, the people in the back need to see it. The person.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it looks very good.
I pull a winning ticket.
Well, I know where it is. It's too far away to go get the stuff. I know where it is.
No, thank you. You could move.
I'm feeling dry.
Okay, that was a plane.
Chris, do you want a flashlight?
I had one. I was doing it with you. It is, I know. They only had little...
I sort of...
Maybe we should leave the maple out.
No.
Natural rain.
So if I win, I'll leave the sunroof open.
If you win, then Leslie didn't buy enough tickets.
All right.
Is he all
Who's going
done?
to be the winner?
Nice job, Ben. Nice trick.
Thank you.
Shake it up good. That mine's in the bottom.
Oh yeah, it's raining.
Don't you always do
Raining
a
drops
sketch?
are falling on my head.
Don't you usually do a sketch?
Yeah.
We missed the sketch.
Not on the bars. All right. Am I the guy who picks?
Beautiful.
Yes.
I like it.
It's quite a mixing job you did there.
I'll make some more.
Good. Go right ahead.
Because you guys have a little trick on you.
Probably gonna be Leslie. Leslie always wins.
Somebody has a trick where
Leslie always wins.
they buy all the tickets at the last minute.
They
So
throw them
this
on
way
top.
we're all on the
Leslie.
Hey, I've been
And that's
flipping
Leslie.
it. I've been flipping it. I've
So
been
I'm
flipping
going
it.
to put all Leslie's tickets are on the bottom.
Still gonna win,
Is the suspense killing you? All right, I'm going to pick one. All right.
Survey says.
Let me put my glasses on. Should I read the whole number or just the last three?
Last four. Last three.
758.
Not even close.
Hey, that's me. Look at that. That's me.
Is it?
All right. So what's weird is I won the last tree 2 years ago.
7-5.
That's crazy.
From me?
Rig.
Yeah. I have to read the one that you did.
They stole the election.
There we go.
It's not rigged. I swear to
They stole
God.
the election.
Congratulations.
A minute ago I was ahead.
like
Woke
your
up. Nobody's laughing.
Makes up for my crappy week last week.
We're good.
What?
Next meeting.
Oh, is the we went over that. The short.